everyone. Ready to dive into some serious hip-hop history.
Always up for that. What are we thinking?
Well, it's been 28 years since Tupac was murdered, and it's still making headlines.
It's true. This case just keeps coming back around.
Right, it just goes to show you how big his impact was and still is.
Absolutely. And this new stuff about Diddy, that's got people talking.
Yeah, that's what we're digging into today, this new article from punchng.com that claims Diddy was involved in Tupac's murder.
Heavy stuff. And we've got his Wikipedia page, too, for context. Plus, TMZ has reactions from Tupac's brother, even.
A lot to unpack, for sure. So for anyone who might not be familiar, can you give us a quick rundown on who Tupac was?
Sure, Tupac Shakur. Huge name in hip-hop, but he was more than just a rapper. You know, like, his Wikipedia page mentions he was into ballet.
Ballet? Seriously?
Yeah. And poetry. He even loved Shakespeare. Imagine that.
Wow, I never knew that about him. Okay, so this guy was complex.
Definitely. And that's part of why his music still resonates today, I think, that depth. But then there's the unsolved murder, all these questions hanging over everything.
Right. So this Punch&G article, that's what really caught our eye. They're saying there are court documents linking Diddy to the murder. Like, he actually put a hit out on Tupac.
It's a wild claim, for sure. Though, to be fair, this isn't the first time Diddy's name has popped up in connection to this case.
Oh, right. I vaguely remember hearing something about that years ago.
He's always denied it, of course.
Yeah.
And he's never been charged with anything related to it.
Okay, so back up a sec. 1994, right? Tupac gets shot at Quad Studios in New York. 5 times, according to his Wikipedia.
Yeah, 5 times. And somehow, he survived. Crazy.
That must have been terrifying. I mean, to think someone was trying to kill you.
Absolutely. And after that, things really shifted for Tupac. His music got darker, angrier. He thought it was a setup, and he even started naming names.
Was who?
One name that kept coming up was Jimmy Henchman.
Jimmy Henchman. Ringing a bell, but I can't quite place it. Who was he again?
Big-time music executive back then. Managed some huge artists, like really big names. But he also had these ties to organized crime, drug trafficking, that whole world.
Not someone to mess with, then?
Nope. And what's really interesting is that later on, Henchman was actually convicted, but for ordering a hit on someone else.
On who?
A guy named Stretch. He was a rapper, good friends with Tupac, and he was with him at Quad Studios that night.
Whoa. So are we connecting the dots here? Is that what you're saying?
It's hard not to, right?
Okay.
You've got this known criminal with ties to the music industry who supposedly wants Tupac dead.
And then 2 years later, it happens again. Only this time.
This time, Tupac doesn't make it.
It's scary to think about how that one night in 1994 might have cast a shadow over the rest of his life.
It's like he knew he was in danger. That feeling really comes through in his music from that point on.
So, Vegas, 1996. He's there for the Mike Tyson fight, right?
Yep. Big fight, lots of excitement. Tupac was actually there with Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records at the time. They were leaving the fight, driving down Las Vegas Boulevard when
When it happened.
a white Cadillac pulls up alongside their car. Someone inside starts shooting, and that's it.
Just like that, gone.
It's the stuff of movies, almost. Except this was real life.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is they never caught the shooter. The white Cadillac just vanished.
You know, you hear drive-by shooting, and it just sounds so impersonal, so cold. But when you picture it, Tupac in that car on a night that should have been a celebration.
It adds another layer of tragedy to it all, definitely.
Yeah.
And the fact that the shooter just disappeared, that no one's ever been held accountable.
That's what's so frustrating, right? Like, how does a car just vanish in Las Vegas? Someone had to see something.
Right, and you've got all these conflicting stories from witnesses, no clear answers. It's like the perfect breeding ground for conspiracy theories.
Yeah, and speaking of which, this is where our TMZ article comes in. Apparently, they arrested this guy, Duane Keefe D. Davis, in connection with Tupac's murder.
Crazy, right? And this isn't just some random guy off the street. Keefe D is a Crip, and he's actually related to Orlando Anderson.
Wait, Anderson? That name rings a bell. He was the guy who got into it with Tupac at the MGM Grand, right? Just hours before the shooting.
Exactly. The fight was caught on camera even. So you've got this possible motive, a fight, then the shooting a few hours later.
And now his uncle gets arrested. Okay, so what's the connection to Diddy? Are we saying Diddy actually ordered the hit on Tupac?
So Keefe D has made these statements, claiming that Diddy implied he'd pay for Tupac's death.
Implied? What does that even mean?
Right, it's all very vague, but still pretty damning stuff. Though whether those statements will actually hold up in court, that's a whole other story.
I mean, it's still pretty huge though, right? To have someone connected to the case actually saying Diddy was involved?
Without a doubt. And it just adds another layer of complexity to this whole East Coast, West Coast rivalry thing.
Because that was a huge deal back then, right? Like more than just music beef.
It was a whole cultural clash. And the media at the time, they ate it up, which just fueled the fire even more.
So you've got this backdrop of simmering tension, then the shooting in New York where Tupac thinks someone's trying to kill him, and then bam, 2 years later it happens again.
And this time, he doesn't survive. It's hard not to see how it's all connected, you know, like a tragic, almost inevitable ending.
Yeah, especially with his stepbrother Mopreme coming forward and saying he doesn't think Diddy was uninvolved.
Right, that TMZ article really shook things up. I mean, this is Tupac's own family we're talking about.
And to have those doubts after all these years, it just adds another layer of sadness to it all, you know?
Absolutely. And it speaks to the fact that even after all this time, there are still so many unanswered questions.
Which is probably why we're all still so captivated by this case, even after 28 years.
It's true. This isn't just about Tupac the rapper or even Tupac the icon. It's about a human life cut short and the search for truth and justice that continues to this day.
And his music, it's a huge part of that. Like, it's still so relevant today. It's powerful stuff. Even the Vatican put one of his songs on their playlist.
Changes, right.
Yeah, I mean, how wild is that? A song about social justice, about fighting for what's right, ending up on the Vatican's playlist.
Talk about a legacy. It makes you wonder, what else is out there? What other unexpected places has his music touched?
It really makes you think, huh? It's like you've got this place, the Vatican, steeped in tradition, history.
Centuries of it.
Exactly, and they're embracing a song about fighting for change, about social justice. Pretty powerful stuff.
It really is. It speaks to the universality of his message, you know?
Yeah.
Like some things just transcend boundaries.
Totally. It's like if Tupac's music can reach the Vatican, where else could it go? Who else has it touched?
That's a good question, and I don't think we'll ever know the full answer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's exciting to think about, you know?
It really is. It kind of makes you want to go on a quest to track down all these little pockets of Tupac's influence around the world.
Right. Like, who would have ever thought his music would end up on the Vatican's playlist?
Exactly. So who knows what other surprises are out there?
It's a reminder to keep an open mind, that's for sure. And to never underestimate the power of music.
For sure. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Time really flies when you're talking about Tupac.
It really does. But before we go, I want to leave everyone with a little something to think about. If Tupac's music could reach the Vatican, like we've been saying, where else could it go? What other unexpected places, what other barriers could it break down?
I like that. It's a question worth pondering.
Definitely. So keep those minds open, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going. Until next time, everybody.